Another day, yet another CLI for doing AI code gen just dropped. I didn't think we would see Google participate in this race. I really didn't. But it seems like they're more and more scared of the things that are happening on the Anthropic side. They want to make sure they're ahead in every single possible way. The Gemini CLI just dropped, and it is really cool. I did not expect them to go full open source, but they did. They went so full on the full open source that if we take a look at the license on GitHub, the Apache 2 license, they didn't even fill out the copyright. They forgot to put in the year and the company name because this is clearly some type of like semi-rogue effort internally. They are going hard to make sure they get this out and they do it right. There's a lot to talk about here, both why they made this and how it works, but more importantly, where the Gemini CLI fits in the whole ecosystem of tools like it. There's a lot to dive into here, but as you can guess, Google's not paying me anything to cover this. In fact, using this is probably going to cost quite a bit of money. So quick word from today's sponsor, and then we'll dive right in. You might have noticed that search got way better on T3 Chat recently, and it also supports pretty much every model. I wish I could take more credit for these improvements, but I really can't. Not just because Julius wrote the code, but because we're not the ones doing the search. Exa is, and that's why I hit them up to sponsor today's video. I am so pumped about the Exa platform. It really is the search tool that AI needs to succeed, and I didn't realize how much we were suffering trying to do this in all of the other ways you can do it. I could try and convince you by showing off their site, but I'd rather just show you the code. Ignore the fact that we're overusing effect TS in here and try to just focus on the simple parts. We create an Exa instance just by calling new Exa with the API key, and then we search. Exa.search, query, we get results, and now we have these results as the search response. And then we can do whatever we want to with that. In this case, we map it and flatten the data so that we can send that as part of our search tool results, and then send it to our AI in order to use it. You can also go through all of the content that it gives you and have Exa go to the page and summarize the thing that it finds there. You don't even need to do the split parts if you don't want to. We're doing it because it's nice for the UI. You can literally just call await exa.search contents and get everything you need like that. You don't even need to use it with AI. Obviously, it's really nice to provide as a tool for your LLMs to use, but you don't have to. You can just call it directly with whatever you want. Like, how compelling is this for a starting point? No more trying to work around Google and CAPTCHAs and all these other things. Just call their SDK. So what's the catch? It's got to be super expensive, right? Let's take a look. $5 per 1,000 requests. Yes, really. I am floored at how cheap it is. For comparison, Google's search grounding for their models is $35 per 1,000 requests. That's insane. We're going to save so much money and get a better experience for our users, all by moving to Exa. Don't make the mistakes we did. Try out Exa today at soydev.link/Exa. It seems really cool and like it features most of the things you would want it to do. I'm excited to dig through the code and play with it with you guys, but first we should see what they have to say. It's free and open source. Gemini CLI brings Gemini directly into developers' terminals with unmatched access for individuals. For devs, the command line interface, CLI, isn't just a tool, it's a home. The terminal's efficiency, ubiquity, and portability make it the go-to utility for getting work done. And as devs' reliance on the terminal endures, so does the demand for integrated AI assistance. That's why we're introducing Gemini CLI, an open-source AI agent that brings the power of Gemini directly into your terminal. Provides lightweight access to Gemini, giving you the most direct path from your prompt to our model. While it excels at coding, we built Gemini CLI to do so much more. It's a versatile, local utility you can use for a wide range of tasks, from content generation and problem solving to deep research and task management. Also integrating Gemini CLI with Google's AI coding assistant, the Gemini Code Assist, so that all devs on free, standard, and enterprise Code Assist plans get prompt-driven AI-first coding in both VS Code and the Gemini CLI. It is cool seeing them embrace VS Code. I've never seen Google acknowledge the existence of competition as much as I have with the AI race. Like, they're not in the old diluted Google bubble where only they exist. They're actually acknowledging that people prefer to use VS Code over the crappy Google web-based interfaces. It's nice for them to acknowledge the existing standards instead of trying to invent their own thing. Even just them having an OpenAI compatible API that's officially documented shows how hard they are working to get this all right. Unmatched usage limits for individual devs. This is another one of those things that Google can do that I think's underrated. Not only do they have massive benefits with like their compute platform because they have their own CPUs and infrastructure for inference and for actually training models. Not only do they have the like platform everybody needs to host the models with and the apps and all these other parts and all the data too, they have a ton of money. That's one of the most underrated things you can have in the AI race because it lets you spend more money training models. It lets you buy more hardware to have more provisioning so people don't go over limits. And it also means you can just hand out shit for free. One of the biggest problems that we have now with T3 chat is a lot of these providers are setting bad expectations where they are giving somebody a $20 a month sub, and if they abuse it, they can cost hundreds of dollars, and OpenAI will just eat it. Or in this case, Google will just eat it. I can tell you confidently that 1,000 requests per day costs Google money, especially if you're using the 1 million token context window. That's insane. That is absurd. So let's just say it's 200K tokens per request average. It's probably more than that if we're doing like your whole code base prompting. 1,000 requests per day. Let's go look at the Gemini costs. I know them off the top of my head, but just so you guys know I'm not bluffing. This is obviously with Pro. It's $2.50 for prompts over 200K tokens per million tokens. It's $1.25, so it's half if we're under 200K. There's a reason I picked 200K. You know what? We're going to change it so we're using the higher cost. So 200,001 tokens per request. So we're on the 250. That's $2.50 per 1 mil input. And it's 10, I believe, per mil out. Oh, it's 15 when it's over 200. Good thing I checked. $15 per 1 mil out. And to be clear, there will be a lot more input tokens than output tokens. I think they have a hard cap on how many output tokens per request. We'll just cut it at a random limit. We'll say input tokens is 200,001. We'll say 8,000 output tokens per request. This ends up being 200 million input tokens per day and 8 million output tokens. That is $500 a day of input tokens and $120 out. Do you see how hard they are fucking the competition here? Google said, you know what? We don't know how much people will use this. We're going to put such insanely generous limits that they can do whatever they want to. We'll just eat the cost. That is $620 plus for a reasonable use case if you're actually hitting the 1,000 requests a day on it. That is insane. If they squeezed that into like the $200 tier or something, it would still be really generous. This is free of charge using the free Gemini Code Assist license. That's absurd. I see people saying that's not the price, that's the cost that they make sure you subtract the profit. What do you think the multiplier is on something that's based on like the GPU utilization? How much profit margin do you think Google has on inference? It's not much. These things cost money to run. We know that because we have good open source models too, and they're expensive as hell to run as well. Best case, Google's profit margin is 50% on their traditional costs. I would guess it's lower. There's almost no way it's higher. So even if you factor in Google's cut that they're not taking here, 250, 60, that's still $300 a day on a free tier account. It's insane to think that this just is magically erased because it's their costs. It's absurdly generous for end users, but it's also absurdly, I don't want to say absurdly hostile, but it's quite hostile to competition. We need to change 2.5 Pro to be a premium model because we looked at the cost and it was our second most expensive model per request, not total, per request. The average message to Gemini cost a lot of money for 2.5 Pro, enough that if you used even 300 requests on it, you're way over the $8 a month you spent. In fact, doing 100 requests with 2.5 Pro can get you pretty close to that $8 mark. So we had to make it a premium model. And a bunch of people responded with, why would I do that when I get a bunch of 2.5 Pro requests for free from AI Studio? I get it. I understand. AI Studio is a terrible experience, and you don't think they're going to keep these deals and prices around? No, this is the embrace, extend, extinguish strategy. This is the price your competition out. And it's cool that Google's aware enough of the competition to do this, but this is a direct response to what Claude did with the Claude Code $200 plan, which is 20x Pro usage. This plan allows you to use Claude Code, as far as I know, effectively unlimited. You said 900 messages with Claude every 5 hours, or approximately 200 to 800 prompts with Claude Code every 5 hours. So if we take even the lower tier here, 200 every 5 hours, that's 960 requests per day. Weird how close that is to 1,000. It's almost like Anthropic's paying close attention to this. That's 960 requests a day at the 200. Remember, it's 200 to 800, so it could actually be more depending on where you end up falling in that. We're going to assume 200 because we're going to assume a large context size. Anthropic's models are way lower context window size, so we have to max it probably at like 100K tokens input. And we'll do the same 8,000 tokens output. So $3 per 1 mil in, 15 per 1 mil out. That's 960 million input tokens a day. Wait, where did I do my math wrong that's coming out so different? Oh, it's 96 million input tokens a day. 8 million output tokens a day. Ends up being $288 for the input. And it's the same output pricing. So it's the same 120 for the output. This is the daily price, remember. Assuming you actually hit these limits every day, and since it's a 5-hour window, like you're not even sleeping, you're just prompting more over and over, you can multiply these times 30 days and you end up with a really scary number. That's $9,000 a month that could theoretically cost if you were to just use the API directly instead, but you can get that for just $200 a month because Anthropic is both giving you more than you're paying for because they have the budget to eat that, and obviously they have the profit margins too. The reason that they're doing this is they want to get people so hooked on the Anthropic models and products and everything that if they have to increase prices in the future, or ideally they can lower the cost of running their models, they get people used to paying this much, they can win long term. So we went from Cursor costing $20 a month with overage fees to Anthropic charging per token usage, which was, the numbers people were posting were insane, like thousands of dollars a month dealing with Anthropic and Claude Code. And then they added this $200 a month plan, and then they added Claude Code to it. And that's how we get these crazy numbers. But they're just eating that at the $200 a month, which is crazy. They're just eating these costs. We can't do that because we don't have billions of dollars of funding. And we also don't have the ability to take over someone else's profit margin the way that they can take over their own. So all of this kind of sucks. Yeah, it's painful. But also, good time to be a dev that wants to use these things. Being able to squeeze over $600 a day of value on a free tier on Gemini for as long as you possibly can. Take advantage of that while you can. And same deal with the Anthropic. Like if you're using Claude Code a lot, the $200 a month, if you're using it at the limits they have, that's a really good value. The other bet they're making is that of the people paying this, less than 1% will actually get close to the limits. So everyone else can just pay the $200 a month, use $30 a month of stuff, and make those margins work. That's enough about the pricing though, because God, there's so much to think about here. The pricing wars are going to get crazier and crazier as we go, especially the like per token cost wars, driving down the amount of GPU that's necessary for all these things. Cost wars are going to get crazy. There are other wars I want to talk about here. Obviously the experience wars, but the one I want to focus on first, the coding agents battle royale. I thought this was a really cool concept. This is Claude Code versus a non-code versus Codex, which is the OpenAI open source Claude Code alternative. Open Code, the one I previously covered and took down the video from DAX, AMP Code, and Gemini. I'm surprised that Aider didn't make it in here, but pretty fun. All of them were told to find and kill the other processes. Last one standing wins. In the first run, it looks like Open Code won pretty hard. Yeah, Open Code immediately ran the process to find all the other processes and then started killing them before any of the rest could figure it out and kill it back. Hilarious concept. I love this. Round 2. They can only kill one at a time in panes close. Apparently Open Code thought it was Claude during this one. System prompts are hard, man. Yeah, it thought it was Claude Code, so it wouldn't kill Claude Code, but it will kill the others. Open Code's still going. It declared victory because it thought it was Claude. So when it saw the Claude Code process, it didn't kill it. But Claude Code is taking its time to find the other process and kill it. Now Claude Code is catching up and is trying to kill processes that have been dead for a while because agentic back and forth. It doesn't have the current state. This is hilarious. I love this. Battle Royale where each gate, the last one through gets kicked, run it 10K times to see which one's the statistical winner. That would be expensive as fucking balls. If you want to fund it, Prime, go nuts. But yeah, I thought this is a great concept. Great work, SigKitten, on this. Genuinely hilarious. Enough of that. Let's play a little. Here's the repo. It's an actual open source repo. I want to lurk contributors. I am curious how much of this was inspired by / copied from Codex. Doesn't seem to have any of the Codex contributors, so I do think they started it from scratch themselves, and the code base doesn't seem super familiar from the quick audit I did. It's been interesting seeing how much contribution it's been getting. Seems like Taylor Mullen is the one really leading the effort on it over at Google. They have a decent team on it. It's one of the better, varied contributor charts that I've seen for a tool like this. Usually it's really heavy one person, then nobody else contributing actively. They got a whole team here. Cool team, lots of work. Seems like they're still ramping up, not down. Those are all very good signs. The repo just went live today and it's already got over 10K stars. Looking lively. Looks like they're being active. They're merging changes. The real fun test is going to be, will they merge changes that enable other models? Hunt for Claude. Does not seem anyone has spun up a PR for other models. Understandable. Why no Rust? NPM. Really? I hate devs. I really do. It's a CLI. It sits there and does nothing. Why do you care about what language it's written in? I hate these people. Rust makes a lot of sense for a lot of things. It does not make sense for building a user-facing product that isn't CPU constrained at all. JS is obviously the better ecosystem of tooling and integrations for something like this, especially with all of the web and stream parsing bullshit. Go ahead and rewrite it in Rust if you want to. You'll see why it makes no sense because it won't feel any better for the users. It really won't. Anyways, I will admit that the biggest competition that Google has with what they're building with Gemini CLI is Codex, and Codex is planning on rewriting in Rust. I did see this a while back where they just randomly put up a Rust package inside of the same repo. The TypeScript one is still what you're installing and using most of the time, but they're trying their best to maintain a one-to-one Rust rewrite. I've chatted with them a bunch about this. Supposedly, there was a couple people internally that really wanted it in Rust, as well as certain customers that don't want to have node dependencies for anything. They just want one single Rust binary. So someone just kind of went and rewrote it in Rust, and Fouad didn't have the balls to say no, and now it is becoming a semi-blessed thing. The long-term plan is for them to eventually have everything in Rust, but they're still focusing on the TypeScript build for now because it's way easier for them to set up, add new features, try out things, and get everything working. And the Rust version is kind of going to be like a line-by-line rewrite over. So for now, they're focusing on iterating on the JS version, but getting the Rust one to a point where it can become the default in the future. They're also hiring if you want to work there. Cool. That said, I don't think it's necessary. I get that they are convinced that they need to have a way to do this with no dependencies. Cool. We'll see how that goes for them. I'm scared they're going to hurt their iteration speed a ton if they fully commit. Also, Apache 2 licensed, also a ton of stars. The one other big difference with the OpenAI version is that they've already merged changes to allow non-OpenAI models, so you can use Claude and Gemini and everything else you want to here. Enough about the competition. I want to keep digging into how this actually works. As shown, this is a TypeScript project, which is really cool. They did it in TypeScript and not JS or some weird shit. They very well could have, but they avoided it, thankfully. Packages breaks down into a couple pieces. They also have a .vs Code, because again, they're actually embracing VS Code. This feels like it was built by a modern team with modern problems, which is very nice and definitely a change from the thing I'm used to seeing from Google. They got CLI and core as two separate pieces. Core is almost certainly a lot of plugging work to get attached to Google's auth and everything properly. You can see here from the depths, that is the case. A ton of OTel stuff, because of course, OTel is one of the most annoying things to set up. They have WebSockets here for the communication layer, and DC for fetch, strip ANSI for handling different character types, almost certainly just Windows bullshit. .env, nice. Diff for rendering the diffs. All this makes sense so far. I'm actually curious how they are calling Google Gen AI, just to look at some of those calls. Here are the parts. Just a parser, nothing too fun there. How about the tools section? It's the tool definition. They have a should confirm execute, always resolves false. That's fun. Interesting. Bunch of boilerplate TypeScript. It's well documented though, so working with this and using it as a reference should be relatively easy. Non-interactive CLI.ts. Okay, now we're talking. Get response text. All the pieces are so abstracted that it's hard to track the whole code flow. I get it, 'cause something like this needs to be relatively chaotic, but still would have been cool to see more of how it's actually doing the work. You might also be noticing the .tsx and confused. Isn't this a CLI? Wouldn't this just be TypeScript? It is kind of weird that this file is TSX because there is no JSX in it. But the reason all of the files in the CLI package are TSX is if you look at the package JSON, you'll see that they are using Inc. Inc is similar to React Native, but for CLIs, it lets you use React to write CLIs, which lets them move way faster and build competently. That said, Inc is not the fastest thing in the world, and I often see people move off of their JS and TypeScript-based CLIs into Go and Rust. And it's not because JS is too slow, it's because Inc and React as a CLI experience is not necessarily the fastest. And I wish companies would explore moving off of Inc instead of moving off of JS for their CLIs, because Inc's a phenomenal starting point to build a good, compelling user experience in the CLI. It's not necessarily the place you want to end up long-term. Shall I just try it? Let's give it a fun task. This is me working on the branch where, funny enough, I'm adding Gemini image gen to T3 chat, which I haven't been able to ship, not because it's not done or not working, because the rate limits for me on the API are awful. We are proceeding. Look at that. They have themes. I wish to just use my CLI theme. We'll stick with that then. Log in with Google, Gemini. Oh, that's funny. When I go up and down, CLIs are hard. Gemini Code Assist and the Gemini CLI are now authorized to access your terminal. Kind of funny that it redirects to a docs page for this because it's the only place they know how to throw you to. Left that in the UI. That's fun. Let me rerun that. You can create a Gemini.md file to customize your interactions with Gemini. I already have an agents.md. I hope I can use that. I'll give it a fun one. So right now, when we use the Gemini image gen on T3 chat, it generates 2 images, but the preview is only 1 image because OpenAI image gen only has 1 image when it generates. So the preview is just 1. It'd be nice if we could render 2 previews when it's going to be 2 images. So let's ask it to do that and see how it does. I'm going to make a new branch because I don't trust any of these tools. 100% of my context is still left. We'll see how this goes. Update the message format UI for image generation during generation. Right now, it shows 1 preview placeholder when an image is generating. But some models, like ImageGen 4, will generate 2 images. It should show 2 placeholders in that case. Preparing a witty response. Oh no. Let's see how it does. And like a real modern SF dev, I'll drink my boba while we wait for this to run. Do I do allow once or allow always? What should we do? I'll do allow once so we can see the changes it makes. So it's adding a new definition for how many images will be generated by the different model. Here, it doesn't show me the lines above that I actually care about. First 2 lines hidden? What do you mean? I don't care. I want a lot more in the first 2 lines. This file's over 1,000 lines. I want to see more. I happen to know where this is in the codebase, so I happen to know that this is image gen model and it's going to generate 2 images because this is the Gemini one. We'll hit yes, allow. Is it also going to add for GPT image 1 that it's only generating 1? Cool. Smart enough. Good start. Is image model, image gen, is image gen count? Sure. Control S to show more lines. We'll see why it's doing that. Just hit allow. Why not? You never know. Let's let it run the PNPM lint. Let's see if it worked. Retry. Oh, nope. It is stacking them vertical, even though the actual preview is horizontal. So let's get a follow-up. The previews are stacking vertically, but the output images are shown horizontally on non-mobile displays. Make sure they match better. Okay, there we go. We can see the rest like this. I hate how the line splits are happening when you need more space. It's not the best UI I've seen for this by a long shot. We'll allow it. Run lint, rerun, and look at that. Good change. Now it will generate placeholders that make sense for that. We should check and make sure it didn't break things for the GPT image gen. Cool, still the correct number of previews. Nice. My download button still work and name the file properly. It does. Awesome. Cool. Let's compare with Claude Code because that took a bit of time and it didn't get it right first try. And here's the numbers for how much it took for tokens. That's 400,000 input tokens for that. That's kind of nuts. And a minute 30 for API time too. Like this cost actual money. If they were charging, this would have cost me like $8. I just spent $8 on a change that would have taken me like 25 seconds to do myself. Benefits and negatives. You get the idea. So let's stash this. Can I grab the exact prompt I submitted here quick? Let's do that. Copy, paste in, same prompt, this time with Claude Code. Let's see how it does. There's a lot of little UX things I think Claude Code got really well. My favorite thing is the hotkey experience where when it's doing things, you can control R to expand, escape to interrupt, enter to accept, command enter to let it just auto accept. A lot of little things it does there that I find really nice. It's going pretty ham on the usage though. I also gave it a big hint with message-format UI because the file that matters is message-format.tsx. So it should know. I was not smart enough to check my git stash and see the right answer there. We shall see. We're still pretty far in this generating step. 19 tool calls, 50,000 tokens, all for the first step of finding and examining the current solution. To be fair, 2 of the files it has to touch are huge files, like massive files. People are saying in chat that Gemini felt faster. It's because it was showing us diffs earlier. Claude Code is much more focused on the planning stage, finding things and making sure its plan is correct before it starts changing code at all. Find image count logic. It's not going to find that. It can feel free to hunt. It's going to go through 15 files and realize that none of them have what it's looking for. This will be fun. Honestly, thus far, I'm actually impressed with the Gemini one. It solved this problem much quicker. We are over the amount of time it took for the Gemini one to solve everything, including my follow-up, by almost 2x, and we haven't seen any diff yet at all. Interesting. Here it's asking us, no, tell Claude what to do differently. The number of images is not currently encoded anywhere. Do I tell it to include it or just hard code the difference? I'll just tell it to include it. Add the number of images as an optional field in models.tsx. GPT image 1 should have 1 image and imagen 4 should have 2. Told it what to do. This is making me more tempted than ever to do the break down all of the CLIs video where I give all of them 3 different tasks in different sandboxes and see how they perform. I've wanted to do that for a while, but I'm more tempted than ever now. Number of images, yep, and you can shift tab to tell it to not keep confirming things, but I'm just gonna hit enter so we can keep seeing the changes it makes. Could it not have changed the GPT image 1 thing at the same time? It's literally 4 lines below. No, it has to use another 1,000 tokens instead. This will be funny. It looks like the code diff might be worse too, because it should have changed the isImage model to use the flag. But let's see what this diff is. I like that it always puts out the actual diff. I don't like that it breaks highlighting when it line wraps. Small thing, but notable. Flex wrap, gap 3. That should be done. New imagen 4. Look at that. It actually got it right first try. That's cool. Did a good job. But how much did it use? Interesting. It used Haiku a bunch for parsing things, and then Claude Sonnet, a lot less tokens overall. A shitload of cache read and write though. 1.2 million tokens of cache read, 126K cache write. The total cost is only $1. The duration was insane, from 90 seconds to almost 5 minutes. And I also had to interrupt at some point and tell it that it was doing things wrong. So technically it wasn't first try in that regard. But since it asked me if it could run the command and it gave me a way out, I could stop it during gen instead of having to correct it after gen. Both did a decent job. If you do want to try OpenCode, just make sure you're doing the one that's SST/OpenCode on GitHub. There are 2 now, and it's very confusing. The history is dramatic, and I'm choosing at this point to stay out of it. SST OpenCode is the real one. This is the one to support. This is the one that will actually continue going forward. Other ones, sketchy. We'll just leave it there. Let's do it. I might need to set up the models. It might just use the key I already have in this because I have environment variables for all these things already. Cool, yeah. Since I already have environment variables because this code base uses OpenAI and Anthropic and all these other models, it was smart enough to grab the key and use it already. Pretty useful. Yeah, this UI is the best by far. OpenCode is stunning. And having the context and things on the bottom here, it fits my TMUX setup properly. It looks the best by far. I like the cost ticker in the corner too, so you can watch your bank account empty itself. Because unlike the Google one and the Anthropic one, they can't do a subscription model because they don't own the models or the providers. They expect you to bring your own API key and then eat the cost. So OpenCode is kind of screwed by these things because $200 a month for literally tens of thousands of dollars of usage, or on Gemini, it's free for the same levels of usage. That hurts. Apparently, they can get around the Anthropic limits by using your Claude OAuth in order to use your max plan through an API endpoint that's kind of hidden, but that will almost certainly be patched up in the future. We will see. I did see a cool comment from chat that I want to call out. Adam, who, if you guys don't know, is one of the lead devs on OpenCode, uses OpenCode himself, and anytime something bugs him or doesn't look right, he fixes it. Stuff comes out nice when you build it for yourself. I agree. Almost all of these CLIs have that as the case. I know for a fact that Claude Code started because somebody wanted it internally and used it internally. They almost didn't release it because it was so popular internally. They were scared it was their edge they were giving up. I know Codex was the same deal, that Fouad had been working on it for a while for his own use and slowly infected other teams at OpenAI with it until they eventually got permission to release it. And that is also the case with OpenCode. All of these tools, as far as I know, are being used by the people who are building them, which is essential for their success. Okay, one annoying thing about OpenCode, since they're doing the custom background color and I'm using Tmux, when I go into manual scroll, it might be hard to see with YouTube compression, but you can clearly see the black line where their background starts because the terminal look back with Tmux isn't smart enough to maintain their custom background color. One small thing, just a thing that I noticed. /share to create a shareable link. What is it talking about there? Added the number of images field. Cool. So it figured out that it needs to do that. Shared models, TSX, 180. Cool. Now let's see if I can get the final piece right. I thought it added the config. Did it really just write like hard-coded values after knowing the right values? Okay, there's something going on here where its scroll doesn't show me what I want. They must have their own custom scroll hotkeys. Do they? Can I just page up in it? Oh, cool. You can page up inside of it. Okay, gen image count, model, string. Okay, yeah, it's hard coding it there even though it added it, supposedly. Updated to show the correct number of placeholders during image generation. Changes include model-specific image counts and message format. Let me see what it actually changed. Okay, it changed markdown content internal to have the hard-coded values there. Flex wrap gap 3. Okay, it did the simplest change, but it should still work. Look at that. It's the only one that with no additional prompting and no additional interruptions got it right first try. That's really cool. So of the three that we tried, which are OpenCode by Dax and Adam at SST, Gemini's new CLI, and Claude Code, they all behaved very differently, but Claude Code was really impressive. But OpenCode just kind of did the right thing, and the rest didn't. And it was also the cheapest by the looks of it. It was 5 cents, is that right? It doesn't give a breakdown after, but it only cost 5 cents. Everything else cost over $1. I don't know how they managed to get the token costs way cheaper, but I think they just reduce how much stuff it has to hit if it doesn't have to. That's really impressive. Maybe the billing difference doesn't matter so much if they put that much work in. It doesn't say this anymore, but previously they said here that they recommend Anthropic models because it was cheaper. Models evolve, the gaps between them will close and pricing will drop, so being provider agnostic is important. Yeah. Previously this said something along the lines of the Anthropic models are the cheapest and also the most reliable, which was cool because they could use less. But it's very impressive that it was as cheap as it was. Although Anthropic models are more expensive per token, they can be cheaper if you give it less context and you get a right answer sooner using less output tokens. So it's possible. Just interesting to see them being the cheapest option here by far. I'm very impressed. Yeah, OpenCode is very good. They're winning me over fast here. Yeah, that one was by far the fastest and the best. So there's still a lot of room for these other providers to grow, it seems, but pretty cool that OpenCode did that well. That's a huge, huge win for them. And I definitely need to do this breakdown comparing all of the solutions more in depth in the near future. You have my interest, to say the absolute least. I'm excited. Simon did a breakdown of the Gemini CLI. I have to cover it because in particular, he managed to get the system prompts. I mean, they're available because it's all open source, but it's really cool to take a look at. Him and I are both surprised at how significant this category has become. I had assumed that the terminal tools like this would always be something of a niche interest, but given the number of people I've heard from spending hundreds of dollars a month on Claude Code, this niche is clearly larger and more important than I had thought. I had a few days of early access to the Gemini one. It's very good, takes advantage of Gemini's million token context, and has good taste in things like when to read a file and when to run a command. Like OpenAI Codex, and unlike Claude Code, it's open source, Apache 2. Claude Code is the only big one that's not open source, which is very interesting. Full source code is in the Gemini CLI on GitHub. The courses prompts live in source, core, prompts TS. Extracted them out as a rendered markdown gist. Wisdom prompt doubles as extremely accurate and concise documentation of what the tool can do. Here's what it has to say about comments, for example. Add code comments sparingly. Focus on why something is done, especially for complex logic, rather than what is done. Only add high-value comments if necessary for clarity or if requested by the user. Do not edit comments that are separate from the code you are changing. Never talk to the user or describe your changes through comments. Seems like a lot of the system prompt is getting around Gemini's, we'll call them quirky behaviors. When key technologies aren't specified, prefer the following. React, JavaScript, TypeScript with Bootstrap CSS, incorporating material design principles for UI UX. On one hand, I am proud of them for not shilling Google stuff too hard here. On the other hand, I am disappointed they won't embrace Tailwind. Funny though. Backend is Node with Express or Python with Fast API. Fine. Full stack next. Very interesting to see. Using Bootstrap CSS and material design principles for front end, or Python Django/Flask. Pick one, man. Come on, you could have had such good bro points if you just put Django here and didn't force Simon, the creator of Django, to put Flask in his blog post. Come on, guys. With React and Vue front-end style with Bootstrap CSS and material design principles. Yep. CLIs, Python or Go. They say with their CLI that they wrote in TypeScript. This is funny, actually. Mobile app, apparently Kotlin multi-platform is pretty good, but Flutter is a choice to put in here. 3D games, HTML, CSS, JS with 3JS. 2D games, HTML, CSS, JS. Specify phaser. If you don't, you're going to wish hell upon your users. It only has a small set of tools, though. It does have web search using grounding, which is cool. Other than that, it's not got too many tools, which makes sense if you use Gemini. One of the things that I'm most excited about with the CLI actually has nothing to do with using it. It's the fact that the people building it are Google employees, so they get to discover firsthand how atrociously bad Gemini can be about tool calls. Sometimes it just says what it's going to do and then doesn't do it. And now they have to deal with that. And I know for a fact they're working on it because not only have Logan and others replied to my posts complaining about it, saying, we're on it, we're going to fix this. I've actually had a couple people surprisingly high up at Google reach out to me looking for my tests where I showed Gemini just not doing the tool calls so they could repro it and try to get it working, I'm assuming on their own internal versions of the models. This is a great test bed for them to figure out why 2.5 models are so much worse at tool calling than the 2.0 models were. To this day, the tool call model that I find the best from Gemini for just like calling tools in the right place reasonably is actually 2.0 Flash of all models. As smart as 2.5 Pro is and as fast and capable as it is at coding, its tool call reliability hasn't been great for me, and this shows that they are working hard to fix it. They did give it a limited set of tools, which I think is both to not overload Gemini with weird things it can do, but also to make sure it can do the right set of focused things and see how it performs and fix these problems. I would hope that they by now have a benchmark internally where they can run Gemini CLI with new Gemini models and make sure that it calls tools properly and performs as expected. They really need help in this regard, and I hope that the Gemini CLI gives them the opportunity to fix some of those things. They do not specify if using the free tier will allow them to train on your code, which means we can assume it probably does. I wish they would be really clear and upfront with that. You can also drop your own paid API key, at which point your data won't be used for improvements, but your build on the token usage, which, as we saw, is kind of insane. As always, Simon's killing it. Really appreciate him for writing this for us so that we have a better reference point. Good stuff. This is a long-ass system prompt, actually. Examples, illustrating tone and workflow. Giving models examples helps a ton, so I'm not surprised they did this. It makes a lot of sense that they did. And then a final reminder at the end. Very interesting. Very interesting. Good stuff. It's genuinely awesome to see more and more of these model companies building CLIs, not because I think we should all be using different CLIs from these different providers, but it's actually one of the best ways to dog food all of these pieces and understand the characteristics of your models. The Codex CLI, as well as the Codex website for background agent stuff, might not be the best thing OpenAI's ever released, but it's forcing them to spend way more time working their hardest in order to get all the pieces together, like understanding how they come together, what their models are good at, what their models are bad at, and how to orchestrate this whole world together. They become much better users of the models by building tools like this. And I think that the most exciting part of all these CLIs is that their creation allows the models to improve at the things that make this work so that we can go do cool stuff with them too. If this results in Gemini becoming better at tool calls, it was worth the investment and then some. And if it ends up being one of the better CLIs, that's really cool and awesome too. If Codex gets fully sunset, but we got better tool call behaviors in the OpenAI models because of it, awesome. And I don't know if Anthropic can learn lessons, but it would be cool if they did too. Tried to do Tailwind, so you wanted to make Tailwind the option. That's really cool. System prompts dynamic. A lot gets trimmed out. Depending on if it's a sandbox execution, it will include different recommendations depending on the platform. If it's in Git, then it will include that there. That's really cool. It includes a dynamic example if it's a Git repo. Interesting. They even left what seems to me like a debug flag, but a really useful one, where you can get it to write the system prompt to a file so you can look at it after the request goes. If I'm understanding this correct, that's really cool as a way for users to get this and play with it. This is like a really open source project in the traditional way. Farrell, the lead contributor here, it's great for iteration. We thought folks would enjoy playing with it. That's really cool. That is really cool that they're like giving this stuff out for people to play with and do what they want to. There's a ton of potential for a tool like this that is this flexible. Like having the system prompt all just be one file with pretty simple like if-else statements. Oh, also, you can read a custom system prompt here if you want to. So you can just write your own and return that instead. Huge. That's really, really cool. There's a lot of good stuff going on here. Yeah, .gemini/systemmd if you want to override. Dope. You can actually have it write to a path and then read from the same path, live updating to system. That's really cool. And you can like hop in there and make changes. There's a really cool potential there. I like that. I haven't seen any of the other tools do that yet. Good stuff. There's like actual interesting innovation going on here. It's cool that every one of these projects has pushed the state of the art forward some amount. OpenAI Codex really broke new ground pushing for open source. Open Code's working really hard on like the UX and integrations, so you can open up a web view to see things going on. Eventually, you can command it from the mobile app. Gemini CLI is focused on being really open and customizable, so you can include your own system prompts. You can see the introspection as it's going. These are all really cool. I'm pumped about the state of this stuff. It's getting better every day, and it's getting cooler and more useful too. This is great. I love the transparency. I love the fact that one of the lead devs hopped in chat just to make sure that we're covering this right and that we know all the coolest parts. I love that. Like whatever's exciting to them is exciting to me too. Apparently, there is an extensions.md in the docs. That is worth checking out too. Books in two locations, .gemini/extensions and on home.gemini/extensions. So you can configure for your whole computer extensions that Gemini can access with the CLI. Good precedence behaviors, Gemini extension JSON, MCP server support. So you can configure an MCP globally on your computer by just putting it in that folder. That's really cool. Or if it's in the workspace, you can commit this via code. That's huge. Name, version, MCP server, context file name. Name of the file that contains the context for the extension. That's really cool, actually. Ton of potential with this. That's awesome. Thank you so much for showing up and giving this additional information, man. It's really good. And I'm happy I could cover all the cool things about the Gemini CLI. I will make it a point to play with this one more. I've been using Claude Code more recently, but after trying out Open Code, I need to use that a lot more too. There's also Aider, which is everything I've heard about has been phenomenal. And from my experience, is pretty damn good too. It was kind of like the pioneer of these AI CLI code gen tools. It's hard to go wrong now, though. All of these are really good and impressive. And if you want to see me break down literally all of them and compare the best and worst of them, let me know and I'll do my best to do that in the near future. Seriously, though, just go play with these, especially now that the price is as cheap or free as it is for a ton of these things. Future's bright. This stuff's really fun. Let me know what you guys think. And until next time, peace, nerds.